Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. We are back in the studio, and more importantly, I am joined once again, back by popular demand, by Josh Aveste. Josh, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. You all right?
Yeah, really good. So, we've seen the pre-season tour come to an end now, and we have got the first glimpses of exactly what we can look forward to this season. So in this video, I want to talk about how Mauricio Pochettino has already transformed Chelsea Football Club. So Josh, just quickly, before we actually get into the technical side of this, what were your initial thoughts when Pochettino was appointed?
Oh, God, we're going back, right, what, 2 months?
3 months.
Periods, yeah. And I think what I was worried about at the time was there was a lot of options and a lot of big names. And I thought a lot of them had cons to them. I feel that a lot of them were like Nagelsmann. Oh, he's a young guy. He's a bit fiery. Like, he hasn't quite got on very well at Bayern. I'm not quite sure how he's going to deal with the egos that we had at Chelsea at the time and how well he's going to deal with the squad, the young squad after. Enrique, wasn't really sure how well he'd do. He hadn't been in club management for 2 years. And then you had Poch as this option that could come in, who had been involved in club football, who had managed in the Premier League, who had done well at Southampton with young players. And I'm kind of thinking, like, is he the best of the bunch? But then also I was I was quite keen on Enrique because I'd seen what he'd done with the Spanish team. I'd seen that he's quite good with the media and quite good with building sort of morale in squads and that sort of thing. And I was kind of going, is he the one? And he seemed like he was the guy for a long time. Yeah. So it wasn't really for me like I prefer one to the other. It was kind of like at the time I was like, who's the best option? Because for me it was all about getting the right man who actually wanted the job. But what did you think? Like, was the Spurs thing like a thing that like really put him down in your estimation?
Yeah, I mean, look, I wasn't keen on Nagelsmann.
Yeah,
didn't really rate him. You can do what you want at Bayern Munich and even other clubs in Germany, and I'd like to see a little bit more before you're brought in. Luis Enrique, again, was one that I was keen on. The fact I said, you know, you can win stuff with Bayern Munich and it doesn't mean all that much. You could probably say it about that Barcelona team. Bearing in mind, though, that is the last time they won a Champions League was under Enrique. And what I was very impressed by, Enrique's teams that he had managed was they played beautiful football. Yeah. Spain, I don't know how they didn't go on to win at least one of the last 2-3 tournaments because they played some good football. But, you know, there's questions there. Enrique was the one for me. I'm going to be honest. I'm quite embarrassed of sort of my comments that I made around the time that Pochettino was appointed. I didn't want him.
Why?
And it was purely out of tribalism. Just purely out of the fact that he was an ex-Spurs man. In my lifetime, he's their greatest manager. Real strong links with Tottenham and had been consistently linked with going back to Tottenham and looked at certain points like he was open to going back to Tottenham and would go back to Tottenham, and it more so looked like the board didn't want him. Now, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, so for those reasons I was very much pushing back against the idea of Pochettino. And also I can say now I'm pretty embarrassed at that because now I look and he's won me over already. He really had. As soon as he came in and said that Chelsea were the biggest team in England, I was like, yeah, that's how you do it.
Great.
But when we move on to once he was in the job, what were the first things that impressed you about Pochettino?
I think what I really liked about him is the way he spoke, just generally. We spoke about it just then in terms of the press conferences. He was saying that we were the best club in England. He was saying that he was desperate to be here, that he was very keen to sort of take charge. He also sort of had this like calmness and sort of like maybe an arrogance, and I think that's a good thing, right? Yeah. To have a bit of the arrogance about him, where he's like, look, I believe I'm the right man for the job. I believe I can come in and make a tactical change, and that's what I was really excited about. I'll tell you the other thing that I really loved was he did do the bomb squad strategy, where he got all of those players that he didn't want, and he said, I don't want those players in my squad, and I don't want to take them on tour, and so they can stay in England, whereas I think a weaker manager, Potter maybe, someone like that, would have taken those players on tour and they would have been involved, and he would have said, I want to see how they do. I want to see if they're integrating into the squad. No, Pochettino just said, no, if you're not involved in the plans and you want to leave, you stay in the bomb squad. And I'm quite happy that he did that. So I think those two things immediately, before we even kicked a ball, I was like, this guy's got a grip of it. He's a mature manager. Because I feel like you've almost got to sort of go, I'm the boss. I know what I'm talking about. I've played the game. I know what I'm doing. And I felt that aura around him. What did you think?
If you were to draw out, and I know it's always different, but if you were to draw out the ideal journey and pathway of a manager who's highly regarded becoming a great manager, I actually think if you were to draw it out, this is the job. This is the job. You had the Southampton job, which got you a bigger job, yeah? The Spurs job. You done unbelievable things with Spurs. You know, you really did. All right, yeah, they didn't win that league title that Leicester won, thanks to us and a little helping hand from Eden Hazard. Yeah, you know, they didn't win that Champions League final. But let's be honest, he brought more success to Spurs in a couple of seasons than we have seen at Spurs in our lifetime, more or less. Yeah, they had the League Cup win, but, then he went on to PSG. Now, PSG, it's a hard job for anyone. It really is a hard job for anyone because the expectations are so high. They now are starting to realise that the model they had tried to build in terms of a Galactico side, when we say Galactico, everyone thinks about Real Madrid's Galacticos. This is going to be unpopular. Real Madrid's Galacticos weren't that good. Brilliant, star-studded names. But apart from, Copa del Rey's Liga titles, they never won a Champions League. The Galacticos really did. They are obviously early on, 2001, but I'm on about peak Galactico time. So what I'm saying is that policy didn't even work for the Trailblazers in Real Madrid. So why was it going to work for PSG? I just think it was a bit of a poison chalice, that PSG job. And now I look at it and I think, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if Pochettino is going to go on from a top manager to a great manager, this is the job that it happens in. I have been really impressed so far. I spoke about, it's a minor thing, but the fact that he threw a barbecue straight away for the players for bonding, that was really good. Exactly what you said there in terms of being firm. Leaving the likes of Lukaku, Ziyech, those sort of players at home can only be a good thing in my book. But then we get on to what we've seen on the training ground and then go through on the pitch. And the main thing for me was the fitness aspect. Because we were told and we were braced for Pochettino's going to bring in this really elite fitness regime and the players are going to have to work so hard. And, we've heard players like Ben Chilwell speaking about it and whatnot. And I can see that on the pitch playing out already. So that was the main thing that I have been impressed by, because when we're looking at the style of play on the pitch, of course, we've had a change of formation. To some extent, we've had a change of personnel. Yeah. But the main thing that I'm looking at, and the fitness levels, the tenacity, the willingness to chase balls that maybe in a season gone by or so wouldn't have been chased down, those little things are not in each individual moment what is going to come off and make you a better team. But if you implement that over the course of a season, those are the sort of things that take a 12th team to a top 6 team. And who knows where it could go after that.
Yeah, so I think the thing, obviously the initial thing you see is that the formation is different. We got back 4, and the 4-2-3-1 system is something that I've loved. I like that formation a lot, and I think that really works for the squad that we're building now. That's what is the beauty of this. We're getting a whole new team in, and we're building that team around that formation. So we're going to have, rather than square pegs and round holes, we should have players that are like expertly positioned in that formation now. So that's really, really exciting. Something that I saw quite a lot in pre-season, don't know if you saw this as well, was that one fullback was bombing on. We had an asymmetrical system. So basically, Chilwell would bomb on the left-hand side, Gusto would drop in, and he would form the back 3. And I love that, because basically what that means is you get an extra attacker in the final third. And what I love about the wing-backs that we've got now is that all of them, every single one of them, bar maybe Cucurella, but we'll talk about whether Cucurella fits in the tactical system in a second. All of them can bomb on and make a difference in the final third, and actually can almost be attackers. Like Chilwell, the amount of goals that guy scores, quality player. Gusto comes in, he looks really adept in the final third as well. So what I love about that is we're going to have overloads on the wing, and we haven't had overloads on the wing for years, probably since the start of Tuchel's era.
I think back to that 4-0 Juventus game. That's the there's obviously other examples, but that's the one that just stood out to me. As soon as you said about that, I was like, yeah, that game it went off well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I love that. And then I tell you what, one I want to ask you about is like the one touch play. Have you seen like a big difference in terms of like the passing and that sort of thing?
I've seen such a big difference in how much time has been slashed off between a player getting on the ball and releasing the ball. Being at the Bridge last season, that thing of a player would get the ball and they'd stay on it and they'd stay on it, and just over time you'd start to hear them groans and moans from the crowd come in where everyone's thinking,
I was doing
move
it, mate. I was
the ball
groaning.
on because what I'm not looking at is the player on the ball. What I'm looking at is the opposition team getting into position, organising themselves because you haven't released the ball quick enough. When you look at the likes of players like Carney Chukwuemeka, to just name one more obvious one for me, the one-touch play between Mudryk and Jackson, and we've seen it between Jackson and Maatsen. We've seen it between all these players. They're shifting the ball on so much quicker. Almost, look, I know it was very hard to look at anything positively last season, but I've been shocked at how good the personnel we've actually got there is, Pre-season, yeah, okay. But I've looked at players like Chukwuemeka. I've looked at players like Mudryk, Maatsen, Jackson, Enzo, even Conor Gallagher. I've looked at and gone, well, you're a lot better than you were last season. And I don't think personally that's because all these I don't think it's just down to fitness. I don't think it's down to the coaching that he will have been able to impose upon them so far. I think it's a tactical thing. I think the way he's got them playing, the clear instructions he's given them, and that's again a thing that comes back to the strength of a manager, the character of a manager, being able to be so clear. You know, you look at Graham Potter and you think it's almost like he'd have gone, I'd like you to do that, but you know, whatever suits you. No, do that. Do that. You get it, release it. You get it, it goes to him. And that is, I think, the definitive instructions that can separate a manager like a Graham Potter from a manager like a Mauricio Pochettino. So that's something that's really impressed me. I also look and I'm thinking, have you seen on the sidelines, he's actually been telling players to come a bit more narrow rather than spreading the play as much. Yeah. And that is geared towards getting more men in the box. Because how many times did we see last season, right? And this is why pundits like, you know, yourself and me were looking at it and going, maybe we could do with a Lukaku there. And actually, no, it's not that. It's not Lukaku. We could do with anyone there. Because so often, those balls that Lukaku would have pounced on were coming across the box. There's just no one there for it. So the fact he's asked players to come in a little bit more narrow, you're seeing now we're getting bodies in the box. How refreshing is it to look at games and you can count 4 Chelsea players in the box? And that's not just a one-off. That's happening so often. You know, you got Chukwuemeka in there. You got Jackson Visbak to go in there, helping the build-up play. Mudryk coming in. Maatsen coming in. So I think that can only be a benefit to how we see our team play going forward now.
It's almost like a polar opposite to what we saw last year in terms of, like, we didn't have pace, right? That was the key thing that we didn't have any of. We didn't have any one-touch play. We didn't have any pressing. We didn't have any bodies in the box. We didn't really have any quality crossing, really, because like we weren't finding anyone. If you cross the ball and there's no one in the box, there's no point of crossing, right? So for me, it's like he's gone back to the drawing board. He's just said, right, I'm going to completely start again. I'm going to create a system that is in my image and is going to fit the squad that we've got right now, and it's worked. And that's what I love about it. Like, we've completely forgotten about what happened last year and we've got a new system. And I'm chuffed, mate, because last season was probably the worst football that I've ever seen at Stamford Bridge in 25 years of going. Like, it was just so slow, so monotonous. People didn't care. There was no running. And so it's just been a breath of fresh air. I'll tell you the last thing I want to talk about is verticality. Like, when last season did we ever see a ball go into space or over the top or even diagonal? Maybe we saw the switch of play, but not anything, you know, into space, because they didn't really trust that front three or the striker, because they didn't have the pace to get in behind. Kai Havertz isn't running in behind. No. And Arsenal are going to find that out the hard way this season, right? He can't do that role. And so to have Jackson in there, to have Maatsen, to have Mudryk, to have Noni coming in as well, you know, all of those boys have the pace to be able to get in behind and take those balls. And you've just seen it. You know, Colwell comes in, gets 6-year contract. He's the kind of player that can ping those balls. Again, Thiago Silva, he's the kind of guy that can do it as well. You got Enzo at the base midfield. He loves a forward ball like that, and he's brilliant at it. So I'm really excited to get more, rather than the horizontal play, which can be monotonous and can basically not result in anything, actually get some verticality. And I think that's a big change this year as well.
I think another thing to touch on is mentality that he's changed of the club, and also the feeling around how the club is perceived by those in the club. Because you look now, right? Levi Colwell, brilliant example, okay? I genuinely thought, after we saw that video of him and Noni Madueke on the pitch after the Euro final, I thought,
it didn't look good, did it?
He don't want to be at Chelsea.
It didn't look good.
He don't want to be at Chelsea, right? And then I went on record as saying, you know, listen, I think that what will happen with Colwell is around Christmas time, he'll decide whether he's going to stay at the club and sign a new contract or not. And what he's going to do is he's going to wait and see the direction of the club, what way we're going, how the manager sees him, utilises him, and if he's being used, if he's getting minutes, if he thinks that we're going to prioritise new signings over our academy products. So for within, 2.5, 3 weeks of me looking at that video of him on the pitch after the Euro final and thinking, yeah, no, he's not thinking forward with Chelsea. Within that time, for him to now sign a bumper contract where he's tied into the club for a very long time, I personally think that can only be down to Mauricio Pochettino.
Yeah.
I also look at small comments that I've actually seen on the car on the way up here to record today. Press conference last night. Listen, Pochettino hasn't sat down, slammed his hand on a table and said, we're winning the Premier League. But he was questioned. And they said, what's the ambition? He went, well, with Chelsea, the ambition's to win. And he said, but what about the Premier League title? And he went, Well, yeah, to win it. He says to win it. He said, I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I'm going to be able to give you a more accurate, definitive answer on that closer to the end of the season. But we're Chelsea, and it's our ambition to win it. And that's refreshing, because managers like Graham Potter, managers like, as much as I love him, Frank Lampard, they wouldn't actually have that conviction to say, yeah, it's our aim to. And obviously, if we don't, which, let's be honest, every man and his dog is backing us not to do that, yeah, I'll fall on my sword. But at the end of the day, why am I going to sit here and say it's not our ambition to win it? And in a week that we have seen Jurgen Klopp come out and say, our ambition's top four, no one should have ambition to win the Premier League while Man City's round. Do you know how lovely that is to hear my manager of my club sit there and go, it's our ambition to win it? Listen, people can take the piss and they'll turn him into a meme when we don't. But do you know how refreshing that is to hear a manager of ours come out and say, yeah, no, it's our ambition to win it. So that massively impressed me with Mauricio Pochettino. And I think that we can see day by day the culture of this club is massively changing under Poch, isn't it?
Yeah. I really rate it. And I'm so excited to actually start the Premier League games now, because there's only so much you can really read into pre-season, isn't there? And also, like, I feel in the next week or so, we're going to get 2 new defensive midfielders, and he's going to build a squad that is, like, finalised, because this is what I feel you miss in pre-season. You don't necessarily have the full squad to see, how everything's going to go. When he gets that full squad, he gets rid of the people that he wants to get rid of. The culture is going to be perfect, because we've got everyone in his image, everyone pulling together for the first time in, I would say, probably 2 years. We've got a squad that's ready to go. And so, yeah, why not? Why not believe that we can win it? And that's not saying that we all go out there as Chelsea fans now and go, yeah, fine, if we come second, then it's a failure this season. That's not saying that. But I love it that we're being driven forward by a real leader in Poch. That's what we really have, and we've kind of lacked that. Like, Frank was definitely a leader in the dressing room, but he had a squad that wasn't really backing him. So there's only so much you can really do there. Potter wasn't a leader. Tuchel was a leader, and we've kind of needed that since that time. And also, like, at the end of the Tuchel era, we were sort of like, I don't know, there was something going on, wasn't there? There was something that wasn't quite right, and he wasn't leading in the same way that he did before. So Poch is coming in there, real mature manager, as we say, and has made a difference. So I'm so excited to see the culture this season, for sure.
Definitely agree with you there. But I want to know what you lot think. What is the main change that you have seen since Mauricio Pochettino came into the job? And what are your expectations? What are your expectations this season? Is a top 6 finish enough for you? Do you buy into the comments that we saw in last night's press conference, where we saw Pochettino talking about the possibility of challenging for a league title? Or is it slow and steady wins the race for you and you just want to see some good football this season? I would love to know your thoughts. I'll be trying to respond to all of you as soon as this video drops, because I will be in the comments. And also, please do me a massive favour. Josh Aveste's channel is linked in the description to this video. So click on there, give him a subscribe. And for this channel, if you're not already, subscribe, hit the bell so that you get a notification every time one of my videos is uploaded. And I'll see you all in the next one.